Everyone has a story to tell. We connect and relate to one another when we share our stories. My name is Amelia Old, and I am your host of Voices of Inspiration. Join me as I share stories of friends, family, and strangers from my everyday life and travels. You will laugh, possibly cry, or walk away feeling connected more than ever to those around you and ready to be the change our world needs. Everyone has a story to tell. What's yours? Welcome to another episode of Voices of Inspiration, where we feature remarkable people who inspire us around the world. In this episode, I'm excited to introduce Kevin Stark, an accomplished artist and entrepreneur based in Chickasaw and Paws Valley, Oklahoma. As the owner of the Toy and Action Figure Museum, Kevin has created a unique attraction that draws visitors from all over the world. With over 13,000 figures, the museum has been voted the best new attraction in the state of Oklahoma, making it a must-see destination for anyone interested in toys and pop culture. In addition to his work with the museum, Kevin is also a talented cartoonist, portrait painter, sculptor, toy designer, musician, photographer, and producer. He has worked on well-known toy lines such as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the Simpsons, and The Mask, and is currently working on his daily comic strip, Geezer. Join us as we explore Kevin's creative journey, learn about his passion for art and humor, and discover what inspires him to keep pushing the boundaries of creativity and entrepreneurship. Whether you're an artist, entrepreneur, or just a fan of pop culture, this episode is sure to inspire you. So you founded the Toy and Action Figure Museum in Paws Valley, Oklahoma, and it's the only museum of its kind in the world. What inspired you to start this museum? And what do you think has been like the most rewarding aspect of it?
Well, I was a massive toy collector, and the city of Paws Valley had gotten together a lot of the citizens and some of the city work leaders. They were trying to plan the growth of Paws Valley for the next 10 years. And this was called Vision 2010. Okay. So this happened in the year 2000. And the things they identified of wanting in Paws Valley, they wanted a theater group, they wanted a arts and cultural center, and then they said, well, we'd like to have unique tourist attractions in the downtown area. And I joked with one of the committee members and said, I'm the unofficial tourist attraction of the town, because news stations would come and do stories on the fact that I designed toys and the fact that I had this massive toy collection. And so they would show that on TV. And so complete strangers would come and knock on my door and say, can we come in and see the toys? And I was like, well, I'm in here working, but yeah, come on in, you know? And so I just joked that I was the unofficial tourist attraction. And one of the members went back to the committee and said, Kevin Stark's going to donate all of his toys to a toy museum. I said, no, I didn't say that. And, well, I will loan you my toys. So we put a group of people together, and I kind of headed that up because, I was the one with the toys and knew about toys. And so it took us about 5 years to get open because we didn't have a building big enough that was available in the downtown area. And this building, which is 7,000 square feet, came available. It had been a department store for 75 years, and it went out of business. We rented it, eventually bought it, and turned the whole place into the Toy and Action Figure Museum.
That's amazing. And you have like over 11,000 figures, right?
Over 13,000 figures.
Wow.
So it continues to grow. So
that's incredible. What's your favorite figure?
Well, I'm a big collector of Batman.
Okay.
So we had a bat cave here that just had nothing but Batman in it. And we pulled all that out about a year ago and put in Star Wars instead. So we have so many action figures and toys, we can't show everything that we have. Mm-hmm. And so we have 2 more buildings that I have that are just full of toys, and they're just not on display. They're just in storage. So we periodically trade stuff out so that we keep the place fresh. And if you come back, you get to see something totally new and different. So
That's really cool. Now I read that you started at an ad agency when you were 15. Is that kind of what led to this?
Well, that led to, I've always done art. My dad told the story that when I was 4 years old, he and I were watching a show about Michelangelo, and that I was laying on the floor watching this show, and that when it was over, I turned to him and said, "That's what I want to do." And so I've just always done art. And at 15, I started working at this ad agency. And by the time I was 18, I was over the art department. So that is what started my commercial art career. And then I went to college and studied fine art. And so I do both. But that led to me designing toys, which led to me collecting even more toys.
Now, you have designed toys for a lot of the popular franchises. What is your process for creating a design that accurately represents a character?
Well, a toy company will buy the rights to create a toy line based on, say, a television cartoon or a movie or whatever. And as a designer, you're charged with the task of turning sometimes a two-dimensional character into a three-dimensional character. So you have to draw the front view, the side view, the back view, and those drawings go to a sculptor. So a lot of times you're drawing stuff based on the show. And so you have to stick to what the characters look like. But a lot of times we're able to do new characters and come up with different things, different characters that haven't appeared. And that for me is the fun part.
Is there a particular franchise or character that you haven't worked with that you would like the chance to?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. I'd love to work with Batman. Haven't done that. See, I work actually with a company, and we work with lots of different, smaller, more independent toy companies. People like Hasbro or Mattel, they have a staff that's just comes in every day and draws Batman, or they come in every day and draw Star Wars stuff, So we work freelance. And so I work for companies in Italy and Australia and France and, plus America, which I prefer because I like working by the project as opposed to going in and punching a clock and doing the same thing every day. So
I can relate to that.
I like the finality of it. It's like, oh, okay, we're done with that. Let's do something else,
Now, can you tell me about your project, Geezer?
Geezer is a 79-year-old superhero. So my father used to think it was based on him, but it's actually based on me. Okay. It's just me as a 79-year-old. And the older I get, the more I can relate to it. He's a 79-year-old superhero. And he was a daily comic strip and all. And then I did a graphic novel of him. And then I have a lot of other characters and comics I'm working on now, which will be put all together in an anthology. So I've got, at least 8 more comics I'm working on. So
now you have a diverse range of skills and interests from toy design, music, photography. How did you discover your passion for these various art forms, and how do you balance that?
Well, for me, it's all creating. Okay. If you're a creative person, you generally don't limit yourself to one thing. To me, it's just exploring my creativity in different mediums. And I don't find that to be particularly strange or different. It's just all creating, and however I feel like creating, like I'm also 4 other artists, okay, that have vastly different mediums and vastly different styles. And someone asked me the other day, well, how do you decide who you're going to be that day? I was like, well, it's just however I feel, it's like anything. I mean, well, I feel like Mexican food today, or something, it's not a hard choice to make. If I feel like just like one character, one artist does birds. She does very lifelike, beautiful paintings of birds. But another artist does thunderstorms at night, which are more abstract. And so if I feel like just pushing paint around, and being more free with it, then I'll be that character. But if I feel like getting down and being really tight and painting realistically, then I'll be the other character. So, it's just how I feel at the time.
I love that. And I mentioned to you before we started the interview that I haven't met anyone else that I related to in this aspect because, very much with my own life and my own work, I've always had different outlets as well. And I've always said, but at the end of the day, they all connect. I work in casting and production of TV film. And then I do this podcast and talk about travel and things like that. So, and I'm also in school as an adult learner. People say, well, how do you do all of it? And I'm like, well, same as you. It just depends on the day. And at the end of the day, it is not a typical 9 to 5 where you just clock out and you often put in more hours, but it's
it's worth it because it's not always like work.
Right.
It's like fun.
It's fun. Mm-hmm. It's fun.
Enjoyable. The funny thing about me is that people come here to the museum and if they meet me here or whatever, they think this is my job. But this is not my job. This is my, donation to the city. Mm-hmm. I don't get paid here and I just, I come in here, I make sure everything's working and doing well, but it's not my job. And if they walk on down to my gallery and they see all the stuff in there that I've done, they're like, holy cow, how do you have time to do all this? And I say, well, it's all I do,
Mm-hmm.
and they find a totally different, person down there than is what is here. So, I don't know. I think it's fun.
It makes me think of something you said in an interview that I watched on YouTube. You said, seek out what you love and make that your work. And I think that is so true.
The difference between me and a lot of other people is they haven't figured out what they want to do.
You're absolutely right. Mm-hmm.
So you just have to find out what you love and love it and do it.
And I think for people like you and I, we have a lot of things that we love. And I know when I was growing up, you were taught to pick one thing and that's it. And you graduate and you go do that for the rest of your life. And I have 3 children, 2 of them are adults. And I'm like, yeah, but do you really know what you want to do forever at 18? Like one thing, like that's really a tough decision.
Well, the days of working in a factory or whatever all your life and retiring are over.
Absolutely.
But you're not guaranteed that even the company will survive that long.
So true.
So you should find what you love to do and try to do that,
Absolutely. So. Now, the museum has been recognized as a top attraction in Oklahoma. How has it impacted the community and how has it been received by visitors from around the world?
Well, visitors, we've been open for 17 years. So it has impacted the town quite a bit in a positive way. And we have visitors coming year round. So it's been a great thing for the community. The restaurant next door loves us, So it's been a very positive impact on the community. But being a nonprofit and all, it's always a struggle, always trying to find funding and this and that. But that's the crazy part. But the people who visit really literally have been here from all over the world. Mm-hmm. And I now have friends in Australia and Germany and several other countries, as well as other far off states, just because of this place. I've met people here that, in fact, my friend from Australia is visiting me next month.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. And it's the opportunity to have a place where people can come and talk about this stuff and not feel nerdy or whatever, it's like, oh no, you're in the safe place here. So we can talk movies and comics and characters, superheroes and all that business. And it's fun, there's no judgment here. So,
What has been your favorite story or interaction that you've had with a visitor that's been particularly memorable?
I'll tell you what it is. This is a lot of work. And like I said, I don't get paid for it. And sometimes you kind of question, is it worth all the work? Okay. But one day, this 4-year-old kid ran up to me and he said, "This is the best day of my life." And I was like, okay, it's worth it.
I got goosebumps.
You're only 4 years old, but okay. So, and I've had adults tell me that who are collectors, and they're so happy to get to come in and kind of see toys from their childhood and things like that. And they're like, wow, we're so happy that you have done this and that you've got this going and that we can come and visit. And so, yeah, it's worth it. So those are the stories that help make it worth it.
That is a big deal because 4-year-olds are opinionated.
Well, it's so funny too, because I used to have some lightsabers in here and I'd pull them out and I would duel with some of the visitors. And I was dueling with another little kid. I mean, he was 4 or 5 years old, and so we're dueling and he stops and he goes like, he would, "Oh, you force on me, huh?" So he was doing the Darth Vader thing. I was like, this is so cool. This is so much fun. I mean, I just love the people and love meeting new people. And this gives me the opportunity to do that. So
how has the community influenced your art, and how have you contributed to the community through your work other than the museum?
I'm kind of allowed that ability to be, offbeat and weird, because they think, "Oh, that's just Kevin." I get a free pass on a lot of stuff.
They expect it.
Yeah, they expect it. It's like, "Oh, well, that's no problem. That's just Kevin." And was the chairman of the board of the local arts council and helped them bring artists in and bring entertainers in. Cause I know a lot of people, they wanted an art walk, and I suggested they do a 5th Friday art walk. And they were like, "What's that?" I said, "Well, we can't really do an art walk every month. Being a small town, it's really difficult to do that." I said, "But there are 4 months out of the year that have 5 Fridays. Okay. So you just do the 5th Friday art walk, and then you only have to do an art walk 4 times a year, And so I would bring in entertainment because I wanted the art walk to be totally different from other art walks. So we had, fire breathers and jugglers, but we'd also have a mariachi band performing with belly dancers, things like that. So really offbeat stuff,
That's really great. What do you think makes Pauls Valley a special place to live and work?
Well, all right. We are right between Tulsa, Oklahoma and Dallas, Texas. We are 2.5 hours one way and 2.5 hours the other way. So that puts us right in the middle. We're on the interstate 35. We're just an hour from Oklahoma City. So we're very conveniently located. Also, weather-wise, there's a slight mountain range south of us. And so we don't get a lot of the bad weather that other parts of the state get. I'm not telling too many people that, though, because I don't want them all to move. But we're pretty lucky as far as the weather goes. And it's a fairly progressive community, considering you're in Oklahoma. There are a lot of artists here, a couple of galleries, art galleries, things like that. So overall, it's a really nice place to live. It's very easygoing. I've had many opportunities to move to Los Angeles. In fact, they keep saying, "Why are you not in Los Angeles?" And I'm like, "Well, do you want to live in Los Angeles?" And they were like, "Well, no." I said, well, neither do I. And the part about the small town life is I don't have a lot of distractions. So if I lived in LA or New York, which I do work in both, I would be like, "Oh, well, there's a concert tonight. Oh, and there's a play opening, and there's another art opening, and there's a museum to go to." I wouldn't get any work done.
Yeah, you wouldn't have any time to do what you needed to do.
Right. And here, it's such an easygoing pace. I really like it. It's quiet. It's nice. And the real estate's inexpensive. So whenever I run out of room, I just buy another building. So, it's very handy.
Now, with the Chickasaws' cultural heritage, have you tried to capture any of their unique characteristics in your artwork?
I have done work with the Chickasaws. We worked on a possible action figure line at one time. And so we were going to do that, but things didn't pan it out. But, we may end up picking it up again later. But the museum here, we're in talks to try to do a display. A lot of times when you go to a museum and you see like Native American displays, it's all about the weapons or the cooking utensils or whatever. And I'm like, well, what about toys? I said, do they have toys? Come on, they had to have something that the kids like. So we're trying to work on something that would depict what children played with, through the tribes. So
that's really cool. Now, what are some of your favorite hidden gems in the Chickasaw and Pauls Valley area that you would recommend to visitors who are looking to do something different, off the beaten path?
Well, Chickasaws have a lot of great stuff. They've got the Bed Ray Chocolate Factory, which is really nice. It started here. They built a building, but they immediately found out that they didn't build a big enough building. And then they built a larger facility down in Davis, which is just about 20 miles south of here. And that's a pretty cool thing. The Chickasaw recreational area is nice. It has, the Turner Falls, or no, I'm sorry, not Turner Falls. Little Niagara is what it has. It has like the coldest water anywhere. So if it's like, 100 degrees in July, you might want to dive into that. So they've done a lot of stuff all over the area. The Chickasaws have, but there are other things to see too. The Turner Falls area is really nice and things like that. The mountain range, the Arbuckle Mountains, which are not very tall mountains, but geologists have said that they feel they're older than the Rockies because a lot of the rocks and stuff you find on the surface here are deep inside the Rockies. So it's not very tall, but a lot older.
Yeah. What advice would you give to aspiring artists or entrepreneurs looking to pursue their passions?
Well, what I tell young people who come to me and say they want to make a living at art, I say, well, you better diversify. Okay. You better be able to do a lot of different things because when I have people come into my shop wanting things, I can do anything they want. Okay. And, if they want particular artwork, I can do that. If they want logos, I can do that. I can design brochures for them. I can do all kinds of stuff. And if I can't do it, I know who can. So I may farm out something to someone else. But like I said, I know the people. And so I say, if you're going to make a living at this, don't hone in on just one thing. The biggest problem I find with young people is they come in, they say they want to make a living at art, but they can't show me any art. I was like, well, where's your art? Well, I gave it all away. I said, well, you can't give it all away. I said, because people got to see whether you can do the work or not, And so I say, you've got to do work. You have to have a lot of work to show, and it better be finished work, not just ballpoint pen on notebook paper. It better be finished artwork. I have a student now who, and I do private students every now and then, who he's really, really good. He's a great artist and he's young. He's just 16, but he needs to clean up his work. Hadn't done anything finished. And so we're working on that now. That's what I tell them. And you got to get out of your studio. It's a sad thing. And I know a lot of artists, doing art is a very solitary thing. Okay. And you don't have to work with anybody. You just do it all by yourself in your own little hidey hole. And that's great and wonderful. But if you're going to sell it, you got to step out of that studio and you got to be able to talk to people. So
people have to know who
you are. They got to know who you are. And so you have to develop that ability to talk about your art and talk about what you do, so. And that's probably the hardest thing for a lot of artists because a lot of my artist friends are very introverted. Fortunately, I don't have that problem.
My youngest daughter, she likes to do artwork and she's also an actress. And when I told her that I was meeting with you today and I told her a little bit about you and your background. She said, "This is one episode I think I'm actually going to listen to."
Oh, well, fine.
So you've sold her.
Okay.
Who or what has been the biggest source of inspiration in your life that's influenced your work and all of these different outlets?
Well, there have been local artists. There was one particular artist, Bert Seaburn, who was from Purcell, which is just 20 miles north. When I was 16 years old, I had an art class with him. He taught me, and he just passed away a few months ago at the age of 91, I think. And all my life, ever since from 16 on, he was a big supporter of what I was doing and encouraged me to do work. And so he was a big influence. And Ho-Ho the Clown was a big influence. Ho-Ho was local TV clown. Okay. And when I was 8 years old, he showed one of my pieces of art on his show. And I was watching the show and thought, and I was like blown away. It's like, wow, piece of my art got on television. Growing up, I never won any art awards or anything. In fact, my father and I went to a local art show that the local art guild put on. And this was when I was in third grade. And I had done this large, elaborate drawing of a peregrine falcon. And so we were looking at it, and I didn't get anything. I didn't get honorable mention or anything. And my dad and I were looking at it, and this one of the art guild ladies saddled up to him and said, "We don't think this little boy did this. We think his father or somebody helped him do it." And my dad was like, "No, that little kid did it." And it was like, at first I was insulted, but then it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. They think an adult did that? So that was a big influence, So even though I didn't win anything, I kind of did win something.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned the TV clown because, I grew up there were local TV clowns on as well. And you might see them at the local Jack's restaurant or whatever on a weekend. And nowadays that doesn't exist. Like you don't have anything like that. So.
Well, I'm trying to change that. See, because even though I have different artist characters, I also have a clown character. So
really,
Lockjaw, the tetanus clown.
What's been the biggest challenge you've faced in your journey, and how did you overcome it?
Well, I'd say the biggest challenge is I'm not motivated by money. Okay, I'm motivated by challenges, and I don't mark success with money. I mark success is, are you getting to do what you want to do? And so that's how I gauge success. But sometimes the lack of funding, the lack of money keeps you from doing some of the cool stuff you could do. So I'm an artist that's not opposed to selling art. Okay. But just having enough money to do what you want and to actually do more stuff for your community and for other artists, things like that. I'd say funding is the biggest challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So,
what's next for you?
What's next for me? I'm thinking of running for president.
I'll be your campaign manager.
Okay. Well, I've created a new mythology called Starkology. And it's like Greek or Roman mythology, and everything has a god or a goddess. So like there's the god of coffee, and there's the god of washers and dryers, and there's the goddess of houseplants, things like that. So I'm working towards putting out a book, like a coffee table book of that. We've put out a set of cards. Mm-hmm. So you get these 50 cards of the gods and goddesses, and on the back it tells about them and things like that. So we're trying to expand the media on that, and have a lot of different things. I'm hoping for a line of action figures also for those. So that's kind of one of the things I'm working on now. I'm also illustrating a children's book right now for an author out of New Orleans. the pop artist I am, Reg Kittens, has a whole line of paraphernalia that he sells. So I'm always trying to produce some of that. So yeah, I've got lots of stuff going on. So
what has been your favorite line that you designed for?
Favorite, I would probably say what I did for Toonsylvania, which was a Steve Spielberg project, because we designed the whole toy line for that. And so everything from plush toys to wind-ups to action figures to play sets. So that was a lot of fun. And Toxic Crusaders was pretty cool too. So I don't know if you remember the old Toxic Avenger movies, but they took the Toxic Avenger, which was an R-rated movie, and turned it into a kid's property.
The way to get around to getting a different audience.
I didn't understand it, but you think, well, don't you think these kids are going to stumble onto the movie at some point?
Where can our listeners find you online?
My website is kevinstarkart.com. That's KEVINSTARKART.com. And that has all my music and art and the different artists I am and the comics, all that kind of fun stuff on it.
So I ask everyone that comes on this question, and you've already given me quite a few nuggets, but do you have a favorite quote or words of wisdom that you would like to leave behind for our listeners?
Do it now. Don't wait.
That's a good one.
If you go back and talk to my younger self, knowing what I know now, I'd say, well, don't start so late. Get out there and do some stuff. The older you get, the harder it is, sometimes to do what you want to do. So
true. You may have just heard my donkeys in the background. I apologize. They are braying at me.
You have donkeys?
I have mini donkeys.
They're donkeys, not burros?
No, they're mini donkeys. So they're half the size of the standards. And they can see me through my office window. And they like to stand at the fence line and look through my window at me like, come feed it again.
Well, I thought I had trouble with cats, but
I've got those too.
I lived that life for a while. I lived on a farm for a while, and we had horses and big dogs and cats and pigeons and chickens and parrots. And I thought as a kid, I was never allowed to have a pet. So I thought, well, when I get to be an adult, I'm going to have a whole bunch of pets. I didn't want a whole bunch.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Well, like me, who doesn't have a regular schedule, pets need a regular schedule. So
true.
When they'd all want to be fed first, because and I'd be wanting to eat myself. So I don't want a lot of pets. I live on a farm, and I don't want to chop wood in the middle of winter. Nope.
Yeah.
See, that's part of finding out what you really want and what you really don't want.
Exactly. I like that we're close to the city. Now that work is semi-back to normal, I'm like, that's a lot to balance.
Yeah, because, it's like, hey, you got all this free,
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I was so excited to meet with you. I just think you're so fascinating. And I was excited to meet someone else that has a brain that works the same as mine and thinks it perfectly normal.
There are very few of us.
Right. that you think it's perfectly normal to have all of these different avenues and different outlets. And I do too. And I love that. And I appreciate that. And so I think that's great.
Thank you very much.
Trying to meet with me today.
Oh, no problem. Anytime.